When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold, like rich garners, the full ripened grain. When I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink.
All right, so after that amazing rendition by Peyton, here we have our analysis. All right, so this was written in 1818, as you can see right here. So the language isn't completely up to date. So we're gonna do a quick reading and kind of translate, or just a little bit modernize it before we go into more soapstone detail. Okay, so the first sentence, when I fears that I may cease to be, seems to be a little bit self-explanatory. It's when he's talking about like when he's scared, when he's not going to be there, when he fears that he's not going to exist or die, and before my pen has gleamed my brain, my teeming brain. So like his brain's overflowing, he has a lot of thoughts. So before high-piled books and character hold like rich garners the full ripened grain. So he's comparing right there a lot of his books, comparing himself to like rich gardeners who have a lot of grain around them. So like the grain's all ripe and the gardeners have all collected it, just like he's done that with the books. And so when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance. So he's looking at the sky and seeing about how romantic it is, and to think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And so here we have our first indication that our speaker is a little bit more has been hurt by love a little bit, as he's talking about how he may never live to trace the high romance that the clouds have there. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more. So we drew a lot of connections to this. He seems to be talking about a fair creature of an hour, so like a girl or his love interest, and when he's talking about an hour here, as Peyton showed in her great portrayal of this back in the days, they used to have these things called courting candles, and she actually has one that she showed in her video. And basically what it was is there was a timer, like 1 hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes, and so it was a candle that was set on that, and once it was lighted, it had however that much time before it was extinguished, and once that was extinguished, that means the date was over. So that's what we thought that he might be thinking of when he's talking about an hour. But then he goes into this thing where he talks about unreflecting love, and so obviously he is not getting love back. Then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame nothingness do you think. So now we're at the end of the poem here, and he's alone. Love has deserted him, and he's contemplating his life and everything he really knows, like in fame, and so everything's really meaningless to him because they all sink to absolute nothingness, and that's what he's talking about. There. So we're gonna go analyze this a little bit with soapstone, and so with speaker here. So the speaker, he seems to be a love struck. We can say we can say writer, because he talks about his pen there. So he's a love struck writer. And he's really trying to. We know he's highly educated because he has a lot of books as well. So since it was back before all the same classes had the same access to education, we could say that he's in a higher class. And so for the occasion, so high class, high educated, and so the occasion, it was after, this is obviously after he has his heart broken, or technically during his heartbreak, has his heart initially broken. The audience is really anyone who will listen to him. He seems to be trying to get his memoir out there, and to get his experience about why this love has happened to him, and why and his feeling of his scaredness of being alone, and just trying to tell people so he's not as scared. Listen, the subject, like I said, it's his fears of dying alone, because and him not finding love. And so the tone, it really seems to be melodramatic. He seems to be a little bit emotionally biased to the topic. He's not it's not really the end of the. I trust me, I know firsthand that when you have your heart broken, and there's unreflecting love, it feels like the end of the world and you're gonna die alone. But he's coming from a emotionally biased perspective, and so he thinks that it seems to be all over and stuff, and it's not really looking from a logical or an objective or neutral subject, but he uses so it's extremely melodramatic, and he uses a lot of imagery to show that. He talks about nothingness do sink, then on a shore, the huge cloudly symbols of high romance, and the night's starred face. And so these give an image of like a night sky and stuff like that, and like constellations, and really romantic. And there's shadows with magic hands of chance, and high piled books with gardeners full ripened grain. And so he's basically really using imagery to show, to tell his story, and he's using that to really further his tone of over dramatic emotional neglect. And so yeah, that's our analysis.